Dambisa Moyo, a Zambian political economist, one time argued and said that African states are not ready for a multi-party dispensation, but rather require a benevolent leader who can drive the people's agenda forward. But I think Kenya has proven us otherwise. They have now had 3 successful, peaceful transitions of power from one leader to another. You can go as far as from Mwai Kibaki to Uhuru Kenyatta, and now from Uhuru Kenyatta to President William Samoei Ruto. Well, we're here to evaluate and explore that is Africa's democracy evolving, and are we moving towards appreciating that there is need for us to have a multi-party dispensation, whereas there's peaceful transition of power from one leader to another. But we also know that in the wake of this transition, the UK is equally having a similar situation where the now late Queen Elizabeth II passed on, and there's also a peaceful transition of power from one leader to another. But the two are different. One is a monarchy, the other is a democracy. Well, we shall evaluate this and much more on the Citizen Chat Show. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen that I shall introduce to you and ask them to say hello to you this particular afternoon. And in no particular order, let me just begin with Honourable Obigah Rose, woman member of Parliament of Terego District. Honourable, many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. So happy to be here. Maybe what you forgot, the most rural member of Parliament in the 11th Parliament. I'm happy to be here.
Very interesting.
Yeah, my niche is the most vulnerable.
I'm not so
Yeah.
sure. There's a constituency in Karamoja who had a short MP. I thought that is the most rural.
Ik. No, you see,
the most rural.
no, it's Terego now. You know, we are number 2. West Nile is number 2 to Karamoja. And what brings us down is Terego reasons. We are so the youngest district, and we have really so many shortfalls. We don't have tarmac, no electricity, we don't have ambulance, we don't have, everything is not there.
That how
Development.
Is that how rurality is measured?
You've not bought one.
I'm going, but how can I buy for government? Government should be able to buy.
Let's not preempt the conversation. Yes, as you can see, it is a very jolly mood this afternoon. And I shall go ahead to introduce the second panelist, Dr. Deus Kamunyu, a lecturer at Makerere University and a frequent panelist on this show. Dr. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me always. I'm happy to be here and to keep sharing with citizens, because we share this space and we should really discuss what affects us and what concerns us as a people.
Okay, thank you. The third and maybe the last panelist on the show so far is retired Major Pollar, Awich, the External Service Director at the National Resistance Movement Secretariat. Retired Major, many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Nice to share our views with our viewers. It's always good to be here. Thank you.
All right, let me just start with you right away. Transition, whereas it appears obvious, I don't think that it is exactly obvious, because if you go back to to Joel Rawlings in Ghana, at the time when there was a transition, the team that was coming in did not understand. Actually, the story around that was that the new team that had been elected thought that the day after the election they would assume State House immediately. So it looks like whereas Kenya has proven to have a smooth transition of power, it is not very obvious, and many African countries haven't had the privilege of witnessing a peaceful transition of power, and Uganda is not spared in this vindication. So is it obvious that an African state is witnessing its third peaceful transition of power? Is it obvious?
Well, to answer your question whether obvious or not, of course the answer would be that is not obvious. Because if you take from independence period, we got, all African countries almost got independence at the same time, 60s nearly. Then shortly after 60s, coming to early 70s, late 60s and early 70s, there were coups all over Africa. It was the norm, it was the fashion, except a few countries like Tanzania and Kenya. Kenya also attempted, but it was subdued. So then after the coups, there came a wave of liberation struggle, armed conflict. And some countries got to power through armed conflict. Then the world turned into civil a bit, and it was, I must say, it was an external force from Africa to say we must go a liberal system, both in economic and in the political. In fact, once you liberalize the economy, according to Karl Marx, you liberalize everything. You even liberalize religion, for example. Before this massive World Bank IMF liberalization, we had 3 religions: Catholic, Anglican, and Muslim, or Islamic, if you may. Now, once the economic base is liberalized, the whole thing is liberalized, the whole superstructure. So IMF, World Bank came with liberalization of the economy and all aspects, including morals. I can assure you, before the IMF World Bank liberalization, these peaks hotel, prostitute standing were not there. Why? Because when morality is a social concept, what me, you, and all of us think is right or wrong. But once you liberalize the economy, even the moral thinking, what I think is right is different from what you think is right. You cannot liberalize the economic base and think you will socialize the morality. That you make the base which is liberal, and you expect. So the liberal economic system led to the political liberalization. And that is why, in the case of Uganda, we went for a referendum for the people to choose whether to go multi-party or not, and people opted for multi-party. So that was a wave which cut across Africa. Therefore, it is not obvious that there's transfer of power, because we have gone through historical stages, from independence accusation to military coups to liberation struggle, and then to the wave of liberalization. Some countries opted to go liberal without a referendum because they argue, say, you know, multi-party is our right. Why should we even vote on right? Or, you know, we just go. And they opted through the legal system to move straight to multi-party. I think Kenya was one of them. I don't see Kenya. I don't remember Kenya having a referendum to choose which political system to use. So it is not obvious. But I want to talk on a bit on why we have often been talking about transition. I am not particularly very sure whether we talk what we mean or we mean what we talk. For example, in the Ugandan constitution, the transition that is referred to under the constitution is actually a transition from one system to another, from a multi-party, from a movement system to a multi-party. And it even has transitional provisions. Because you have been in one different system, you are moving to another different system. So I'm not so sure whether when we talk of a transition, in the sense of another president coming, whether it is really transition. I'm not so sure we mean what we are talking. My mother had so many daughters. I mean, my father had so many daughters. But sometimes when he's calling a Kello, he actually means a team. So what is in his head is actually what is, until a team says, but daddy, you are not calling me. But all along he has been saying, Kello, bring me that, whatever. Akela, bring me my shoes. Akela, bring me my shoes. Until a team looks at him and said, Atim, why? You are not acting. Say, but daddy, you are calling somebody else. So I'm not so sure whether we mean a change from one president to another is actually transition. It may be a mismap of a diction, choice of words. But what I know is that while it is not obvious, every country has in its inbuilt system how leaders are changed from one to another. And Uganda has its uniqueness, others have term limit, others don't have. Kenya has term limit, you serve 10 years, you go. So it is not obvious because we have gone through historical aspects. And here we are, but I'm glad Kenya has done it. Tanzania has been doing it for a long time. Tanzania has haven't done it more than Kenya. So, if I'm to stop for your question, it's not so obvious, but it is happening.
Okay, fair enough. Honourable, let me come to you. You belong to the National Resistance Movement, the ruling party in Uganda. Let me just take you back into history. Uganda has never had a peaceful transition of power When you go back to the 1966 Kabaka crisis, you come to the 1971 Idi Amin military coup. You come to the 1979 UNLF government with the way it captured power. You come to the 1986 Museveni protracted people's struggle. It has not been peaceful at all. Maybe the question is, what are other countries in the region, for example, Kenya and Tanzania, what are they doing that we are not doing in Uganda to achieve, or at least to witness, a peaceful transfer of power from one leader to another? What aren't we doing?
Thank you.
Or what are we doing wrong?
Thank you so much. It's over 30 years we have been in peace. We have not had what you are talking about, the Kabaka incidents or Idi Amin and so forth. Of course, some situations warrant that, which is not the same in the neighboring countries. I happen to be one of the observers in Kenya. And the cooperation, they did everything, because I one time worked for Electoral Commission here. There is something little Uganda should be able to borrow from Kenya. So that I know NRM honestly wins the elections. But to clean and cleanse people's minds from any suspicions, we need to do a little more. For example, delivering the voting materials like the previous day to the elections. They must be at the polling stations. Otherwise, you fail to explain why materials arrive late in Kampala, when on the voting day, every vehicle belongs to Electoral Commission. Every serene is supposed to clear the way. But nevertheless, yes, history is there, but history is not going to repeat itself. Yeah, it has come to a control movement system, has shown the direction. Honestly, as a member of NRM, I'm a very honest person. When I won the primary elections, NRM has had a lot of mess, especially when it comes to primary elections. You know, these when you are with your siblings, you can have that fight amongst yourselves. But of course, when NRM moved to lining up, when you line up for the elections, it has really helped NRM to clean itself. I don't disagree with you that previously we had to use the force, arms and ammunition to change government. But of course, you learn from your neighbor. I don't think this is going to come in the near future. If it comes, then Ugandans are not serious. We have a peaceful way of changing government. You know, the NRM system is so strong right now that it's difficult to beat it. Up to village level. Like if you have over 100 people at a village level, how many villages are there in the country? But now people think it's about stealing votes. No. And taking to arms, the ruling government must be strong enough. If you want to be in power, then use the right means. Yeah, for me, I think, yes, it happened. I was not there during Kabaka's time, but I don't think history should repeat itself. We need a total mindset change.
Okay.
Excuse me, you said that Uganda has never had a peaceful transfer of power. Is that what you say?
From one leader to another, yes.
We have had the transfer of power peacefully.
From which leader to which leader?
From Seven to himself. We have had elections.
And
No,
that is why I was
tell
here.
you this history. And people keep messing it up.
From one leader to another.
Yes. You see, when Amin was overthrown, the Mosi conference in Tanzania, the Mosi conference was a conference of Ugandans who were fighting Amin.
Yes.
Of course, when they called for the conference, everybody now started a briefcase association because they wanted to get a piece of after Amin. Uganda Freedom Alliance, Uganda doctor would also come with his briefcase and Uganda Freedom something. I'm a Uganda nationalist. You know, people came with many things. The accreditation to accredit who to sit in Mosi conference became a big problem. Professor Kabojero was in charge of accreditation. Be as it is, Mosi conference sat. The spirit in Mosi conference was that when Amin is overthrown, we have a temporary government pending election. So Lule was put. When Lule was put, Lule started to show signs that he wanted to entrench himself rather than the spirit of Moshe. So Lule was to be the first president ever to be impeached by parliament. He was not overthrown by the military. Parliament impeached Lule. So parliament brought Binaisa to replace Lule. But Binaisa was worse. What do I mean? How do I compare worse and good? Binaisa started saying by word of mouth and tell the woman. They said, human, we impeach Lule, now you are worse. So they dropped another government, and this government handed over power peacefully. So after Binaisa, the military are the ones who overthrew Binaisa. So when they overthrew Binaisa, they said, ladies and gentlemen, we are military, but let us be kingmakers, but not kings. Let's not make ourselves kings. Let's not overthrow a government. We have overthrown, but let's put some people. So the military amended the constitution, which was applicable by then, the 1967 constitution, to create for a shared presidency. He said instead of having one, let's have three. So that if it coamara you, it does not coamara the others. If it coamara the two of you, it does not, because to get stuck, three of you is difficult. So what did the army do? They went to a court of appeal. It was the highest court. Supreme Court is a birth of the 1995 Constitution. They picked two judges, Justice Musoke and Justice Nyamuchoncho. They said if we make these three one, make all the three judges look like a court. They put Wachawol to be the third. So three persons were shown in as head of state, and they became the president for 6 months. So when these people were shown, even the independence celebration of 1979, three persons read one speech as one president in Kololo. Because they are three in one, like the Holy Spirit, the Son, and the Word. So it is the same leaders, because the parliament then was called National Consultative Council, chaired by Professor Ogumayo. He was the speaker. If you want to know you are a president of Kamunyu is a president or Ross is a president, check who assents to the law. Because it is only the president who can sign for a bill to be a law. These three were the ones who signed for the laws. The laws are there. So when Obote was elected, Obote 2, they transferred power officially. So don't say Uganda has never had a transfer of power. Do you get it clear?
What is 6 months?
Retired Major, I think you've made a very passionate argument. But although, maybe just to clarify to the viewers, I know that the Godfrey Binaisa presidency and the Professor Yusuf Lule presidency had mishaps because of, I think, appointment issues. And I think that led to the famous Lotankome Kaira case versus Edward Rugumayo that challenged the appointments of Professor Yusuf Lule, that the appointments were contravening with the spirit of the Moshi Conference. Because that conference was, I think, built on the spirit of comradeship. Let us form a government that works for all. And Professor Yusuf Lule was doing contrary to the conference. But what he was doing was actually legally right. He was saying that the Constitution, the 1967 Constitution, provides for how a president shall appoint cabinet ministers or appoint public servants, which was contrary to the Moshi Conference, which was a consensus built. But anyway,
but whatever it is, Lule was a president, accepted. He was removed, not peaceful transfer. Whatever it is, Binaisa was a president. He was removed, not peaceful transfer. But the other three were presidents, and they transferred power peacefully. That's the bottom line.
Major, one question.
The duration.
They were there for 6 months.
Were these transfers peaceful from one elected leader to another?
Then you have to edit it. But you had said, and you did not put the word elected.
Okay.
Then you have to edit your own sentence.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Doctor, let me come to you. Major brings in a very interesting argument, and he says that perhaps we are reviewing transfer of power from a different angle. That maybe at times we focus too much on the presidency, whereas at these other lower levels, at the parliamentary levels, at the local government level, there's actually evolution of leaders. So there's actually peaceful transfer of power from one MB to another. There's actually peaceful transfer of power from one LC5 to another. But we only haven't seen it at the presidential level. So do you think we are misdiagnosing transfer of power? That because we haven't seen it, for example, in the NRM regime.
Professor also helped me transfer and transition, whether they are two and the same. Transfer and transition, or
so
do we mean what we're saying?
I last doctor, So do you think that Ugandans who believe that we have not had a peaceful transition of power because the top hasn't changed, but the lower structures have actually been changing, is that a right school of thought, or we should evaluate it more?
Anyway, I have a different view because to me all these things don't arise. I think we are discussing challenges, and that's where I get I'm good at discussing challenges but at the end of the day I always feel we won't get anywhere. You see, challenges are as a result of failure to diagnose the right or to get the right problem and prescribe a solution for that problem and in time deal with that problem. And so what happens is that over time there are very many issues that come up that even attract us to now begin discussing challenges. Like, for example, this transition over transfer or what is as a result of a situation of a misdiagnosed problem. To the extent that even to me, transfer or transition, in my view, does not arise if we understood the real problem of this country. And this is where I will begin. Post-independence, Uganda is faced with a lot of issues. And the way, when you read history, you realize that even what brought us to independence was also not very well done. It was as a result of groups of people, this
The Lancaster Conference.
Then they go there. Then one group of people want Uganda to be synonymous with a certain group. You really see that there. Then Mzee Obote, also does this deal, and the thing comes out and it's imposed here, and immediately the real issues lose attention. And the real issue at that point in 1986 was creating a national army. To me, would have been the first issue to be dealt with. So that an army has a responsibility to keep us together, rambling and disagreeing, and then it's okay, but don't go beyond here. A national army does that sometimes, and it also keeps us from enemies who may distort us. And we missed that completely after 96. And then we ramble. I wanted to be the head. So you really see. And then we are faced with fundamental questions. And one of them was the Uganda question. You have so many questions, including Karamoja question. North-South divide. Up Bantu versus Nilotics. North-South divide. Then we have religious questions that needed to be answered. But there is no way we would have any. Now, there's no one would have answered those questions without someone protecting us and dealing with us. That you are going to extremes. Extremes, come down, discuss real things and resolve them. And so a group, and that question remained, and that issue remained unattended to until Idi Amin demonstrated to us that actually there was no country but exhausted, unresolved conflicts based on the challenges of the time. We did not deal with the problem. Now, all these take over 20 years. Bloodshed, coups, then commissions, this period of commissions where Awich says that we transferred. There was transfer of power.
79 May to December 1980 when Obote was elected.
Oh, I thought you was referring to the Ode Commission and the...
These military
commissions. The one I said.
All the military
those commissions that Moshi, this goodwill of the people. And at this point you realize to extrapolate that Ugandans were willing to solve their own problems. They sit in Moshi and they have these good hearts and they say, and then they are let down by a few other people. Maybe there were long-term interests of some other people who were willing to overtake this whole good process. But to me, that period demonstrates to us that Uganda is possible, that people can actually sit together and resolve their own problems peacefully without the extremes. And that's why I still challenge Major Awich and his colleagues, my colleagues here. And I'm also an NRM sympathizer. I'm not in active politics. So
you don't have a party card?
Yellow is my childhood color. But I still challenge you on whether really we have a national army today, and whether it is capable of protecting our interests as a people, so that we can discuss freely and resolve our own issues, and even without aligning itself with one group or with a section of the people. I don't know whether we have ever answered identified the real problem of this country post-independence to date. We are about to see that. And that's what will tell us whether we are really mature. And that if we decided as NRM to pick our lady Honourable here as our next president, the army would salute her and put her in and respect her decisions and the decisions of the group she's governing with, or she's leading. That we are about to see. We've not seen it very well.
So are you saying that the impasse in terms of us not witnessing a peaceful transfer of power from one elected leader to another, let me be specific, from one elected leader to another, is because of the lack of a national semblance or the army force?
I will not say that. That's what I am hoping that I will see that day where the army respects the leadership of this country and upholds the purpose for which it is created, to protect this country, and the act is very clear that creates our army. So I would wish to see that. I cannot say it's a reason we've not had, because Ugandans have been deciding. NRM sits and say, okay, for us, we are the majority, we want to remove term limits. They sit and say, we want to remove age limit. That cannot be a problem of one leader. And this is where I come in to say, maybe blame civic competence, blame Honourable and all those who where a decision is mooted by a group, and they clap and say, let's. We cannot blame this on a leader, let's say Museveni or another leader, because he's leading jointly with Honourable here. And as soon as an idea is mooted, they clap for it and it goes. You've seen in Parliament. And that cannot be, that is it's moralist and not political, really. Moralist. To now start saying that's President Museveni's problem. You mean doesn't she love this country? She comes from the remotest. You mean she doesn't want a system that will ensure electricity goes to her village? That is sane enough not to overburdened by a management budget, management in as funding military intelligence instead of developing and taking electricity to people. She's not interested in that. Now, my issue on transfer is totally transition. Transition, I agree with him. Transition is moved from a system to another. Transition, and then from transition, managing a system's operation. Let's say a leader has been elected, like Ruth was being elected, and that moment itself causes a situation of transiting. So it has to be managed. One leader is getting out, and the transfer to me cannot stand alone. It's more of like something we like using, but to me it doesn't seem to arise in a democratic situation. Maybe you are transferring a power to another person. That to me can't be an issue, really. Okay, but transitioning as a moment has its own dictates. People are realigning, some leaders changing, those holding authority being in, and like I saw in the UK, that moment of transition from queen to king is being managed by public servants. And you see the public servants, yesterday I saw a video where public servants will say, sign there, you are. So you see, a system is guiding a transition. So but I don't want to be bogged down by that, for heaven's sake. What I want Uganda to concentrate on is defining the real problem we have. And up to today, I am convinced the problem we have and where I want evidence is where we have a national army that is capable of respecting whichever leader that we choose.
Okay.
And whether the army really gets involved in the politicking and make sure that it is free and fair.
Yeah.
That's what preoccupies me.
Yeah.
And once that has been sorted out, these questions you are asking will not arise.
Not arise, okay.
Ugandans will choose
I
their...
have a follow-up for Doctor.
Sure.
You see, Doctor started off by saying he was not bothered about your question of transition or transfer, and even repeated towards the closing, although he made mention. But Doctor is a teacher. You see, Doctor, there was a time when we had in high school, senior 4, O-level, some students who did not do revision, you ask a question of, discuss transatlantic trade. Now, this one had not done his review. He chooses to say, if you had asked Trans-Sahara, the question is transatlantic. So, I thought you'd be fair enough to answer the question and give your views. Otherwise, you have set, the question is set for you, you have deliberately decided to put it aside, create your own question and answer it.
But finally, I answered is that...
And our senior leader, Dr. Besje, asked that a bit. Besje never answers a question you ask. Besje will always paraphrase and tell you, if you had asked this, I said, but mine is this. First answer mine. First answer mine.
The question of transfer
or transition.
is answered in this process. That moment, a competent public service capable of holding the instruments that define a state, the will of that public service, because this transfer is conducted by this public system that is stable, that is the army is ready to salute a new leader and march. Once those are not done, then you are pushing, you answering your question, it pushes me to challenges.
Because
I don't want
Doctor,
to
why
and I'm still worried.
Why I asked is that perhaps we haven't seen that change of power or that transfer of power at the presidential level. But there are LC5s who are transferring files and everything from one.
So is that transition or transfer?
Maybe it doesn't matter a lot. Maybe that's what really matters.
So what matters is
and you are going to a small thing because your preoccupation, the preoccupation of citizen is seeing what caused problems before was not change of local council leadership or Mayumbi Kumi leadership or the leadership of the local.
That is
what bothered us always was in Nakasero.
You see,
okay.
Doctor,
was always in Nakasero.
Yes,
They always change
understood.
heads of cooperatives. Mayumbi Kumi changed.
Doctor,
things changed.
Can I say this? Can I say this, Doctor? You see, your choice of not being bothered about the details of transition or transfer, that consciousness, somebody may query why you form that consciousness to choose to discuss the other. Somebody may think you are actually saying, don't tamper with the status quo. Let us discuss other things. It may be it may be a subconscious thinking of a defense. Don't leave it as it is. You discuss other things. Because I wonder why that you say all our consciousness as a tendency of a materiality.
I could actually say yes. Yes, and maybe I didn't. That's why I said my answering of the question, the way I answered ends up answering the other. Because I believe that Ugandans must first build civic competence in order to tackle the main. Otherwise, we may repeat the same thing.
Okay, then that's.
But the moment we begin transition, public service is very important in this transfer. That the army, national army, is very important in this, and that its involvement in our politicking is itself. I don't know why we understand.
I don't know why you doubt the army. First of all, the way the system is, the rural, the lower level is broad. and it comes and builds the topmost.
An apex.
Yeah. Now, if down there we are changing MPs, LC3s, LC5s, meaning there's democracy, meaning the whole thing is the same, peacefully.
But someone
Why
will
you
argue Soroti, will argue Kayunga, will argue these things.
You know, in elections,
in
doctor,
this, and you realize that maybe
I encourage you.
the situation may not be that.
I encourage you one day to contest. Do not believe in these people so much, the people called agents. Once they see you have spent so much in guarding your election, your votes during elections, and they have not delivered, they come with stories to you. They start telling you, no, the other person cheated, this one did. I can tell you, when I went to contest, I was the last to arrive. It was left with 2 weeks for NRM to have nomination for NRM flag bearers. Okay, the candidates. I came for nomination 2 weeks. But I worked so hard. I reached the home states. I moved. But at the end of the day, the structures of NRM had said, for us to have taken sides, we don't need you, we don't know you. To their dismay, the local people lined behind me. When I won in primaries, they said, no. We do not know actually where you have come from. We don't know you. You are not our candidate. I told late Olanya, may his soul rest in peace, that I will beat these people with double. And the difference between me and my opponent is over 10,000 votes. I said, I know where the votes are. This is what we are failing to accept here in the presidential elections. Power belongs to the majority. This is how politics works. So the majority are NRM. What did you expect? That they should elect Besigye, or they should vote for who? Bobby Wine, when Bobby Wine is very thin on ground.
For me, I do understand, but I also want us to accept that we've not arrived at the point, because the issue was never her position. Even if it was even her position,
it's an example.
Her position may not even be of significance.
Oh, really? No, I think
it may not be of significance to
in the
framers, in the political. But like I've said, the issue was never before. The issue was never changing of the local. Even during Obote's regime,
it was always
there were certain positions that they were never interested in. But there are certain specific constituencies where dance and drama would apply. So the issue was always Nakasero.
At the top.
It was never the local.
Doctor, you see, the point is simple. It is this. If me, NRM candidate at that level, gets a lot of votes, the same votes for the bus is the same vote that goes to president. Now you see the votes by the FDC, by Loop. If Loop gets just 3,000 votes, me I'm in 20 plus votes. You get the point. Cumulatively, it goes to the next level.
I think fair enough. What Honourable is saying is that this is a bottom-up approach. But anyway, Honourable, my question that I want to pose to you is that whereas we are seated here and admiring the Republic of Kenya, saying that, oh wow, they've gone in that democracy, wow, they're having a peaceful transition of power or transfer of power. They had a peaceful electoral process. On Tuesday, while the Deputy President was swearing in, Honourable Rigathi Gachagua, he said that, and I will just try to paraphrase him, that from today onwards, whether you're in the public service, whether you're in the opposition, feel free to say anything that you want. This government will not politically persecute you for criticizing it. This government will not try to vindicate you because you've criticized it. This is interesting because it comes at a week when your parliament, the parliament that you serve in, where you are a member, has just passed the Computer Misuse Amendment Bill. Provisions under which attempt to curtail people's freedom of speech. So do you think that we are being dishonest with ourselves? We want to be like Kenya. But Kenya is a country where their leaders are saying that, please, go ahead and speak, criticize us. Here we are doing the contrary. We are saying, no. Whatever you say must be sieved.
You see, I just want to tell you, if there is any country that I admire for freedom of speech or whatever you want to write, it's Uganda. I lived in Syria. I lived in Khartoum. I was in Egypt. Whatever is being done in this country cannot be done elsewhere.
Let's not compare ourselves.
And even Kenya, you know, Kenya today is pretending, you can post anything. Go and post. and hear what Kenya would. People here, they'll draw the president's head like an axe. They do anything. But at times it goes over and above. I hope you read it so well, the Computer Misuse Act.
Yes.
Yesterday, a lady sent me an inbox. She said, see my body. I will now send me 25,000. Then I will show you the other. You can't even read. Why? I've not asked for this. You start fishing me out. Then I did not pay her any money. I just checked before I could block her. Almost 20. Vulgar. You can't see them. Did she even know me? Did she know my age? Because on my profile is a baby. Is a young girl. Yeah. I've just even put my mother this morning. So to whom was she sending this? To that baby? To that kid? So if we do not come to terms with some of the excesses,
But aren't some
we are
of these-
ruining our own.
Aren't honorable? Aren't some of these moral questions that they should be addressed morally? That they should be addressed through culture institutions, through maybe
The
religious
cultural
institutions?
institutions are there. The
Do you have to
religious
make
institutions.
laws for everything that we feel is maybe
Do you understand what a country?
inconveniencing us?
There's no inconveniencing in this matter. You need a law to back up each and everything you do in this country. Honestly, whatever is done in the computer world has gone to the next level.
Because why I ask is that the United Kingdom has no written constitution, but you can never challenge their democratic principles. But they have no written constitution. So I don't think that everything, to address every issue in society, we must have it in the law. Because there are countries that have addressed issues of transfer of power, issues of human rights without a single written constitution. So I think that whereas we aspire to be like Kenya, there are things that our leaders must begin to portray. A culture that let people begin to civically address and air out their opinions without having any fear that they'll be curtailed.
There is something of late I've tried to get out of Ugandan population. Actually, even during the elections in Kenya, Ugandans were more interested in the elections than the Kenyans. Ugandans, all platforms were following, not even like the Kenyans. You wonder why Uganda thinks Kenya is better than Uganda. From me, who has lived in Kenya.
But it is
Who has
incredible.
seen what? You know, let's walk the talk. Let's give Kenya just 2 months and get back to the drawing board. But you post anything, post it the way they are saying post anything, it is not possible.
But Honourable, what did you
You have
see?
been posting everything.
Okay, maybe we can be slow to look at the post, maybe swearing in. But let's look at the electoral democracy, the electoral process. We didn't see tear gas being fired anywhere. We didn't see maybe people being arbitrarily arrested. You know, candidates campaigned freely. I don't know. I don't know if I'm seeing it through the wrong lenses or I'm dreaming of.
During the day of elections, towards there, all shops in Kenya were closed. Everything was closed.
Voluntarily.
It was closed. But here is Uganda that cannot close its shops. And you want to inconvenience those in the business world. When they tell you use this route, which will lead you to the same destination, you refuse. You want to go and disorganize and mess up so that you can see 2-3 people die. Honestly, what is wrong when they say, when they guide you, police guide you, move this direction, leave this route. You see, at times people want to act drama. They just want to show. You see, there are some things which are so clear, but you really want to do this so that you can be seen doing something. A simple example.
Okay, let me
you
ask
pick 20 million, you come, you throw away 10 million. Is this not drama?
Okay, Honourable.
So the way our opposition in this country mostly
Did
do
you
things.
see Kenya's military on the streets during the? You said you were there. Did you see any military officer on the streets?
The military officers were keeping peace. They were moving. Yes.
They're on the streets?
They were in the streets moving, keeping peace.
Okay.
Even when I was sleeping, they were in their cars, driving, parking, and seeing what is taking place. They were there. I was personally there. Even I have videos of as we are going observing. How they were calm. They look at you just like the way Ugandans do.
I think
peace.
the consensus that me and you have is that Kenya has upscaled their electoral democracy. And whether we take it or leave it, I think we should challenge ourselves as a country to do
Yeah,
better.
yeah. I said
But I
one
want to
thing.
move to
No, I said
right-
one thing. I really want to reiterate this: the delivery of the ballot materials, the boxes, and so forth. We need to improve on this.
The transparency
I do not
of the Electoral
agree
Commission.
with a situation where Kampala delivers materials at 4. This is wrong. If they can arrive in Terego by 6:30, then elections start on time. What happens in Kampala? Yet we win genuinely. Even if Kampala does not vote for NRM, the rest will vote and will win. Did it happen? Are we not in NRM?
Okay, fair enough. Right, retired Major, you're a lawyer, and I'm sure you understand the basic structure doctrine of any constitution. That there are certain provisions in the constitution that, if altered with, affect the entire structure of the constitution. Article 168 of our constitution outlists these provisions. That to amend these provisions, you must seek a referendum of the people. The people, it is only the people who can amend these provisions. And there are, I think, about 6 provisions. But the larger part of the constitution, the amendment process is left in the hands of Parliament. Now, when you look at Article 102B that was amended, Article 105 that was amended, around age limit and term limit, scholars have argued that these 2 articles have affected the basic structure doctrine of the entire constitution. That even if today we don't witness a peaceful transfer of power from one leader elected to another, it's because there is nothing like a term limit or an age limit. So do you subscribe to that school of thought that the basic structure doctrine of our country has been altered, of the constitution has been altered with, and therefore, even when we discuss transition of power, it's a far-fetched idea?
Well, I like to answer questions. I don't think it would have been tampered with. I don't think it would have been tampered with the way you are asking. And I also like the way you are now using the diction, transfer of power. Because transition is different. Transition, for example, the multi-party movement, multi-party, they put transition provisions. What will move on to the next? What will move on to the next? For example, you find transition provision saying the courts will continue to the next. Okay? The whatever will continue. It is listed. In other words, you're changing from
But
this,
even in
but what will go?
a system can also have, like, for example, if you are going to sign in a new person, change to new document, new personalities, new orders, a system in itself inside it can transit.
Yeah, so that is transition, where you are moving in from one system to another. Some countries choose to have an act of parliament to deal with transition. But in our case, the constitution provided transitional provisions. That this will continue, we are transiting, but don't tamper with the courts, or don't tamper with the army. We are not starting afresh, we're just transitioning. But transfer of power, you can even see symbols that show transfer. They're symbols. Here is the chair, sit here. Here is a key to the State House, get it. Here is a copy of the Constitution, have it. So they have transferred power to you. Powers, they are symbols. Like the United States, they are that briefcase of a president, which they said has knob to the atomic bomb. It is given to you.
Weapons.
It is given to you. So we are in Uganda, it is transfer. We have already had transition. So it is actually transfer. And there are symbol ingredients that shows power has been transferred. Now, let me also mention something about, you talked about the UK constitution. UK is a very constitutional government with constitutional monarch, and it is not written. You'd like to interest yourself that UK is an island. People move from the land, from neither land. If you went to KLM and you get a menu, one in English, one in Dutch, they're very similar. You can actually order, I always order food in Dutch. Why? Because people left from the mainland to go to the island, to the water. So when they stayed in the water over a long period of time, they crystallized their civilization. They crystallized and became one. So they know do's and do not, do's and do not, do's and do nots. Unlike America, for example, where you have, they may look white, but this white, there's the German, there's the French, there's the Italian, there's the Portuguese, the Latino, and Africans join as slaves, Chinese are poured in. So America is a no man land. So what you need, and that's why there's an overemphasis of rule of law, rule of law, because it is only the law that puts all of you together. Unlike in the UK where it is one civilization, and you know do's and do nots. We don't do like this. We do, when the king dies, we do like this. When the king dies, we do this. When the queen dies, everybody knows do's and do not. That's why they don't have a written constitution. And it works. Okay? I just like to share this with our viewers so that we have a root understanding of this. In America, there's rule of law because it's a category of people. You don't follow the German culture, the Dutch culture, the English culture. They are white, but everybody is different. There was a time the American ambassador in Uganda was an Italian. He even told me, I even know my village in Italy. But I'm an American now. I'm the American ambassador here. So that is why they have their system working, because it's crystallized civilization on the water. Now, about the scenario I've cited in the Constitution, I've already told you that it has not altered. Whatever the provisions that you cited are called entrenched provisions. Those are entrenched provisions. The entrenched provision was ring-fenced to say, ladies and gentlemen, in the minds of the constitution makers in the CA in the conference center, the constitutional drafters and passers said, ladies and gentlemen, as Ugandans, we may change this in any way, but this one, if you want to change it, don't tamper with it. And I don't see any of the entrenched provision that has been tampered with, contrary to the procedures. It is all done like that. So, because the theory that you're talking about...
Major, let me just counter you right there. Because I have read very interesting articles, and part of which was from Professor Ben. Professor Ben argued and said that maybe the consensus in 1995 did not envisage that some of these articles should have been entrenched. And that we should not only look at the articles outlisted in Article 168 of the Constitution as being entrenched. There are those that are not shortlisted there, but are very important to the basic structure of the Constitution. Like Article 102B, that if you have a president who can serve for life, then you've affected the other aspects of the Constitution. The aspect of human rights, aspects of independence of institutions, because you have a leader who can exercise arbitrary power.
Yes, but how I wish their views were in the CA. And I think the constitutional processes tried to gather as many views as possible. And they also asked Ugandans to get representatives. All these issues were put there and were discussed. Now, his opinion is in the wrong forum. How I wish he had put his views in the CA. But be as it is, there are entrenched provisions. And there is also a provision for how to amend the Constitution. To the best of my knowledge, there is no single provision which has been amended contrary to
the Constitution.
Contrary to the provision.
I agree with you.
So now,
Major,
these other thinkers, with all due respect to them, they are free to think. How I wish they had thought in CA.
But
as it is what it is. Maybe the only thing now is to follow the same amendment procedures and entrench it.
Because, Major, why I ask you this question is for a very obvious reason. That if, for example, Article 105 had not been repealed, right now we would have term limits. And we would have been able to see a transfer of power or a transition of power from one leader to another. And that whereas we are discussing transition of power in Kenya, maybe Article 105 could have given us an opportunity.
Definitely, I agree with you. If it was there, we would be implementing the Constitution. But now that it wasn't there, the question is, how was it removed? Was it removed unconstitutionally or was removed constitutionally? What were the minds of these Ugandans who left it out? And that's why I'm saying, if this other thinker you are talking of had thought at the right time, it would have been debated then and discussed then. But I'm sure it was discussed and Ugandans opted otherwise.
Well,
So if you doubt the minds of Ugandans at that time, what do we do?
You've argued like the Lord Chief Justice Owingdol at the time when he was hearing that case. But anyway, I think that one last question before we take a short commercial break. Do you think that the 1995 Constitution, do you think the Constitution as it is today, with all the amendments, is still the consensus of Ugandans of 1995?
1995 consensus, if you measure directly with what provision that was then and now, it's definitely different. You see, law is not cast on stones. The society itself is so dynamic. There's a dynamicity of society, and laws conforms to society. It is actually not society which conforms to law. Now, the dynamicity, therefore, in the minds of people we have delegated, the minds of people we have elected to so do handle this, thought that the situation had changed from 95 to now. And the people that we entrusted, including the ones doctor has issues with, because professor has referred to clapping so many times. But that is the sovereignty. We gave them the mandate. So they are the mandate holders. So the mandate holders thought in their wisdom and presumably in the people they represent, because they seem to say we always consult. So presumably in the people they represent, they thought that the 1995 scenario with the dynamicity of society warranted the amendment.
Maybe
so if you look at it, it's not the same.
Maybe Dr. would want to ask that, do you want to examine the process through which our colleagues in Parliament exercised their will? Was it actually free will, whereby we had
do you influence?
No.
And this is where
I don't say I do influence. We had men in
my brother. This is where
entering Parliament.
This is where I
so
feel.
Was there a free will, Major?
Doctor will want to
This is where I feel that my colleagues and very many others before, and maybe these are dictates of politics, they are very dishonest. Because to me, what has run this country is not the law. It is the spirit behind the law, always. And that matters. The spirit behind the law is always never discussed. Of course it's like a forest. It's a big forest. That's why Benaisa is given power, Chirode is given power, goodwill, Ugandans, very certain Moshi. And this man gets there, not because he understands the goodwill and what it meant to the nation, but he wanted entrenchment for other reasons. The spirit.
Actually, Yusuf Rule's argument was that we are being governed by the 1967 Constitution.
No, but why didn't he say
and not the Moshe? Because
but why didn't he appreciate the goodwill?
Moshe was a spirit.
Very good, and a good spirit.
When the UNLF government came, they restored the 1967 Constitution. The legal notice number 1 of 1979 restored the 1967 Constitution. So that now meant that the country was being governed by the 1967 Constitution, not the Moshe Conference.
Yeah, but he forgot the spirit.
The Moshe Conference was not a law.
No, it was not a law.
It was a consensus.
But this was a good spirit
by
for
individuals
nation.
outside Uganda.
This is where their views are justified. That most of us concentrate on the law, and yet the spirit changes the law always. Okay. And we have never learned that this gentleman's agreement in Moshi is a very good agreement. It's a beautiful for this nation, and that if the spirit was followed, this nation would not be in this skirmish. But the spirit drives not the law because it benefits him. The same applies to Isa, it is now in the impeachment gives him power, and the impeachment is for nation. It is reacting to a national crisis, and the man reaches very well, and then the spirit changes that and is internal woman, and this is what where dishonest is. That you who discuss the law miss the point. You forget the spirit. And until we realize that the spirit is for discussion, and I know where the spirit usually comes from, it is national social formation. And this is where politics of multi-party lose the point. That to me, a multi-party dispensation and politics of parties are about the beliefs and values that build the spirit, not then the spirit the law. Now, it makes sense that when we have a spirit for nation, we will respect the law. But we often discuss these jargons. We will change these jargons. I will change them. I will have an opportunity to hoodwink my parliamentarians who are also trying to safeguard their cake. And say, put your hands up because I am going to threaten your tenure. And they won't put up their hands. And the law will change for my. And this is where I ask myself.
Are you, in other words, saying that the law has been changed under undue influence, contrary to what Major was trying to put out?
Never. It's because the spirit of those who are at play, who are playing the game, is loose. And this is where we must change the narrative to civic competence, so that she does not change her tongue because she's on camera, because she knows someone is going to evaluate, but because she believes in a nation, and that she's ready to say, Major Awich, this will not serve nation. It is going to serve. It is a point of vulnerability, and we won't go for it. And this is where our brothers and sisters in the United Kingdom and these civilizations that have also gone through their share of difficulties, we have not come there for, and that's why I'm hopeful that even us will get there. Until we have statesmen who will stand in front of power and say, this will not serve us all. And I'm ready to lose my position in parliament for sake of nation. My spirit is of less importance, and the nation spirit must endure. And this is what we see.
Wow.
And that's where we fail. And that's why I say our problems are misdiagnosed. That's why I'm also hoping that the two things to me matter: a stable public service and a stable army, and that will be put to test one day to see whether my army is willing to salute a leader that is not one who laid its foundation.
Good question.
And that is something that I'm waiting for, and I would wish to see it. And that's where I would wish then to pray that I see it in my generation, in my time.
Thank you, Doctor. I am sure you picked some of those words and energy from the American Declaration of Freedom because of the energy with which you've spoken. But well, that takes us for a short commercial break. We hope that you're enjoying the Citizen Chat Show. Above all, we know that you have an opinion and a comment. There's a comment section right below this YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. Give us your opinion. But above all, stay with us and see you shortly after this break.
The Citizens Chat Room happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Without further ado, let's just dive straight to the chase. Honourable, just let me pose to you this fundamental question. We are comparing two transitions of power. One in an African state, which is, I would assume, actually is democratic. The other is the United Kingdom, which is, I think it's a quasi-monarchy system. They have democratic values and principles, but it appears as if power is bestowed more on the crown than it is in the elected leaders. In your own opinion, which way do you think offers a better form of governance? Do you think countries should go for monarchies like the UK has done, or democratic systems offer a better opportunity? Because monarchies is where, now for example, Prince Charles is going to become UK's leader or king, but he's someone who has not been elected. I mean, we don't know what he stands for, but he is going to assume the highest office in the land. So do you think that some of these practices, whereas they are there, we should move beyond them? That someone cannot just be born a leader. We don't know what you stand for, we don't know your values, but because your father was lucky to be a king, now you also have to be a king. So do you think monarchies versus democracies, which one offers a better form of governance?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm a little uncomfortable taking it wholesome. One, Uganda has traditional leaders, much as for us we're in the democratic system. And then two, UK is another world, first world class, and I'm here. But of course, from the Ugandan perspective, I'll go for democratic system. But but for me to say leaders are not only born, but they can be built in their system. Prince Charles has been in the waiting. All preparations to make him a good king took place. But for us, in our setting, it's definitely a democratic system because you'll be able to listen to me, understand what I stand for. Does it answer the questions and the aspirations of the people in Terego? By the place I love to contest in is Terego. You cannot come and deceive the people of Terego with money. No. They will listen to you and listen good. They will ask questions and you provide answers. If you cannot provide answers, please get out of Terego. It's not about money. It's about capacity and capability. And I'll tell you, it's not about party. It's about the right person to take us to the next place. And they will keep calling you. Not about money, send me money, no. So democracy is the best to me.
Okay.
But I cannot compare UK to my status in Uganda.
Thank you. Why I asked that question is because I have a follow-up question for you. And you chose democracy. And one of the key principles of democracy is independence of institutions, or the principle of separation of powers. Whereas it is unrealistic, we should aspire for a system where there is separation of powers, that the executive is independent of the judiciary. Now, there is consensus here that for us to witness a peaceful transition of power from one leader to another, there must be strong institutions and strong systems. He emphasized the public service. All these are institutions that must be very strong and firm to guide a peaceful transfer or transition of power. But I want us to focus on the judiciary and its independence, because it plays a very key role in transfer of power as an institution. Now, Uganda's case, one of the key tenets that constitute an independent judiciary is that the judges must have security of tenure. They must hold office knowing that no one can sack me, not the president, not even, no one can sack me. Therefore, I will render my judgment without fear or favor. Not so long ago, about 2 months ago, our president appointed 16 judges of the High Court in acting capacity. I don't think the judges will have an independent mind, because you're in acting capacity anytime they can recall your appointment. So their security of tenure has been affected. I don't think their judgment will be independent. So do you think that some of our practices have continuously come to haunt us? That, for example, the judiciary, that should have been an independent institution, because of the practices around its appointment, its independence has been affected. Or let's come to Parliament, where you sit. Your independence, the way you are mingled with the executive. It is difficult to draw a line between the executive and Parliament. Yes, we have seen you go against certain positions against them, but largely you conform to the executive principles. That's, for as long as a bill comes from the executive, Parliament will just pass it. So do you think that the independence of institutions in Uganda is wanting?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would like to say this. There's a period within which you can act. I sit on the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee.
Okay.
When you choose to do the wrong thing and you want to shift the responsibility to another person, it's an embarrassment. Actually, it's an insult to yourself. The judges have been appointed, yes, in acting capacity, but there's a period within which they'll be confirmed. And if you want to do something wrong and you are claiming that it's because I'm in acting, honestly, I will not go by what you think. You should stand for the right thing. There is no one after the lives, or there is no one who wants these judges to do anything contrary to what they stand for. What is it that the president needs within this time during their acting period that you think can make them act contrary? Me, I always say people should first visit their consciousness. You can't say, I'm going to take this money or extort this money because I think Rose needs it. Just tell Rose no. I remember in Red Cross, there was one of the bosses who was going with a driver. A driver said, my shirt is white. I am not going to pull down the jerrycans nor the food items. This senior officer should have known. Actually, this driver is saying this act is wrong. If I continue, it will get back to the board. And he insisted and relocated the materials, which was supposed to be taken to the island. And the story came backwards. And then he came crying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I do not blame anyone for my personal wrongs. Independence of judiciary, legislature, and the executive is what you choose to do. If you think you are in NRM, you are going to do the wrong thing, then one day you are going to answer for it. The president is not there to say no to everything. So long as you are able to explain to Mzee why you are born by this position. You know, I do not want to sit somewhere and go by hearsay. I want to be a witness to a situation. I want to tell you there is independence. But people want
of parliament?
Of parliament, of course. You had VC, you had the issue, so many issues in
Uganda
parliament,
Airlines.
right? Uganda Airlines and so forth. You know, some people just come, they want to say it is the president. And when you go to the bottom of it, some people are responsible for their acts. Ugandans must learn to do the right thing. They must become patriotic enough, because this country is enough for all of us. I do not have to have an aspiration at the level of the president. My level as a member of parliament, I should be able to do my part as a member of parliament. The same to the judges and the same to the executive.
Did you say
from is it Namuganzas to think you are doing this because the president said I'm not appearing before this committee? It's rubbish.
Yeah.
It is sheepish.
Did you say that you don't aspire to be the president?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I am the woman MP for now.
And
It doesn't come just like this.
Okay.
I am the woman MP Terego.
Yeah.
And that is where I stop.
Okay,
Yeah.
for now. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Honourable. Doctor, let me come to you. Whereas all over the world, people were eulogizing the death of the Queen, we saw a very controversial statement from the economic freedom fighter leader in South Africa, J.S. Malema. In his statement, he was actually saying that African states should not be celebrating or should not be even eulogizing the death of the Queen, because this is the person who presided over the colonization of African states, who was at the helm of UK when there was, you know, slave trade of Africans and all these, you know, inhuman and degrading treatments that Africans underwent. Whereas in the wake of discussing transition in the United Kingdom from one leader to another, do you think that there is need for us to examine the role that UK has played in the development of African states, or lack of development therein? Or we should focus simply on that transition and forget the role they've played in Africa?
Before I answer your question, maybe I want to
Make a
shortly
joiner.
dive into the question you asked her. I think we should study the UK system very well. In my private time, I'm originally from science, but in my private time I read a lot of political economy and history, and I realize what you read of the UK is not really what it is. The UK system has evolved for very many years, actually over 1,000 years, and people have always had, that system has always had its share of complications. One of them was in 1707, I think, when the Scotland and England decided to form a union of kingdoms. And so that's why you see when the king goes Scotland, he's the king of Scots. When he comes down, he's a... And all these were consensus, were products of consensus and people's will. So I want to look at the United Kingdom as a sort of a customs-based system that emerged from the will of the people and their king. They create their, like joining with what he was arguing, it comes from their heritage and they appreciate it. It's like Buganda and their king. The system of chiefs, for example. Do you know that the chiefs are more powerful than the Kabaka? As in, the chiefs, they are meeting. They can say, sack the Kabaka, was told. Even in the UK, the representation, what would later maybe become like the House of Commons, is more powerful to the extent that they drive even the public service. So over time, their kingdom, through their common system, the evolution of the people's customs, and their system is intertwined. You cannot separate the House of Commons from the kingdom. Neither can you separate the kingdom, the Buckingham Palace, from the House of Commons. That's why even they live almost in the proximity. You move from one house to another like this. You don't have to drive to go to So their systems are intertwined, and the people's desires are in the kingdom and vice versa. So when you read the history, you really see this very strong connection. And over time, the people of the citizens of the United Kingdom realize that their kingdom is of an advantage to them. For example, the queen or the king is the head of state of 15 countries. And this comes with the advantages because the UK as a superpower has an advantage on technologies, on what, and they can easily, allow a flow of resources from these states too. So they see it as an advantage, and indeed it's an advantage to them. Through tourism, this historical creature of the people, by the way, of the people. The kings could have had used their power wrongly because of you can elect a president and he ends up subjugating you. So they could have their own share of inadequacies. But this kingdom is created by the people. So I wanted to clear that this system is not without democratic principles, but it's their own system. And that's the way the problem is, that they wanted that system imposed on us without checking our system also. And that's a problem. Now back to your question of Economic Freedom Party and the idea that this queen was... I want to share in their frustration. And every Pan-Africanist would look at it that way. But that this colonial project was a very stressful project. It undermined our being. They created problems for us. Look at how our nations were carved out. At a time when we were not willing to have such carvings, they were together, and all these problems we are announcing as a result of that. But if, for example, the Zulu people were a nation like France is a nation, maybe there would be some level of cohesion. That's what I share in that frustration, and what colonialism came with, that forceful, that exploitation, and Uganda had a share of the whole exploitation, just like South Africa. So I share in the frustrations of that. But they must also realize that with colonialism, we started moving forward. For example, we are Uganda, the Nilotics, the Bantus, the what, all banded together as kingdoms of Bunyoro, very strong kingdom, Buganda, very strong kingdom, brought together, and we have to really negotiate our way into a modern world. That itself gives us a lot of work to do on ourselves as a country, than now beginning to quarrel with dead people. And so much as I share in their frustration, I also realize that we are not dealing with what they left, and yet it's more important that now we begin to take more time to deal with the problems that they left us with, and also learn to tactfully explore their system and also take advantage of it. And that's why I say, of course, with them they came with a gun. You know, one of the things they deceived our kings with. You know, our kings were also interested in killing their enemy. They had these things, arrows, and now one of them was a gun. The capacity to shoot the person and they die immediately. And then our kings got excited and sold our brothers, and then they also hoodwinked them with like Uganda was told that when they unite with them, they would get them other parts of Uganda and they would become a big kingdom. Then they quickly entered the whole thing. So they were hoodwinked. But they also came with some things that we enjoy today, and we don't seem to be running away from them. Like, look at how he's dressed in the tie, and he's enjoying this. So they came with, I'm giving you a simplistic example, but they came with things that really opened us to a new world, and we can appreciate that as well. And the fact that this is what we insist on. Even Marema was writing in English. They were not writing in another language, English. I saw they were writing on paper, which came from up there. So you can see this caveat and that is diversionary. And so to me, dead people are dead. And you don't pick a quarrel with dead people. After all, they are dead.
Okay.
And then we begin dealing with this whole big plate that we have, a myriad of issues. Karamoja kids dying, people in Terego without electricity. Whatever. Let's really concentrate on this without forgetting our history. That does not mean we forget our history, but this history should be teaching us on how we should behave, for example, going forward. So much as I share in the frustration of the economic freedom, and it's real frustration, any Pan-Africanist, I am one of the real practical one, because I don't believe in this club. But I also think we should go into it in a very clever manner, that we don't now quarrel over our past things that move, but concentrate on the problems that our past brought with us.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just bring in Mr. Major, retired Major. Major, let's just examine the Dr. William Ruto presidency a little bit and what it means for Uganda. We have seen media, we have seen pictures, we have seen even videos of President William Ruto and President Museveni having very good, relationships. They appear to have a cordial relationship. Do you think his presidency offers a better chance for the East African Federation to move forward, contrary to what his competitor was actually? Because I think sometime the Right Honourable Odinga was quoted saying that Kenya should not be compared with other countries like Uganda. So I think his approach could have been counter East African Federation. So in your view, do you think that the Ruto presidency and all this transition offers a bigger platform for East Africa Federation to gear up and move forward much more quicker?
And by the before the Raila Odinga should come and apologize to our ancestors. They are the ones that brought him a problem. How could he blame us? Our ancestors were not happy.
Yes.
It appears an easy question, which I would answer in the affirmative. But it may be difficult if, for example, I was asked to dig deeper into Ruto, which I think is not my work now. Going by his conduct in the past and going by the conduct of his opponent, who I think was a reckless statement in international relations. States are sovereign and presumed to be equal. And that is why even in United Nations, they sit alphabetically. Actually, Uganda is not very far from United States by the fact that we are letter U. So it is a very risky venture for a leader to publicly compare states, especially when you are comparing in negative terms. If you're comparing them in development, Uganda has developed so much, Rwanda has developed so much, that is another thing. But if you're comparing them in terms of negativity, that Uganda is, you know, the way he said it, it's a very unguarded statement for a leader. States are sovereign and equal. And a head of state, whether Kagame or head of state of Malawi, is equivalent to head of state of United States. And even when they're sitting, they're put together. So it is regrettable that Raila made that reckless statement. He should come clean of it. But back to Ruto.
The East African Federation. In
Yes,
general.
I think, and that is the angle our president is looking at him. Our President Museveni, is not looking at Ruto giving money to Uganda or Ruto doing anything. Is more into the spirit, to use the doctor's diction. He repeatedly used the spirit, and I asked him what spirit was. Dr. asked, by the way, you see, there's the famous speech of Frederick Engels on the graveside of Karl Marx. Karl Marx was buried in Highgate Cemetery in London. So when Karl Marx and Engels were living, they were known to be materialists to the extent that they didn't believe in God. They said it is materialism that determines consciousness, not the other way around. But when at the graveside of Karl Marx, Engels said, this spirit which has left us. Now people are, hey, you mean they also believe in spirit? He's saying spirit. That he went on to say, this spirit which has left us, I am nothing compared to him. He was able to see higher, farther, and wider than me. He was, in other words, trying to be polite and confess that, man, don't compare Marx with me. It's better. But he said the spirit. What he meant
That's
here,
what I mean also.
what he meant here is that the
That's-
consciousness, that consciousness is what he meant spirit. So Museveni, in the spirit of East Africa, the greater East Africa, which now will soon include Somalia, he sees Ruto as an actor, as a good actor. And by all intent and purposes, he seems to portray so. So now that the Kenyan people have decided, we appreciate them for their decision, for their voting, and we do hope, therefore, that greater and faster activities come in the reign of Ruto. Remember, he has only 10 years. So if you miss many of the 10 years, then we would have missed an opportunity. But by all intent and purposes, by his actions, and also you could see that he was polite enough to respect a senior leader. His comment about our president, of course, as I said earlier, even a president sworn 5 minutes ago is equal to any president. But you could even see that he was still giving respect and honor to Museveni as a senior, and to the effect that he referred him as the, did he say
Baba.
the father
Father of the region.
father of the region.
Yes.
Yeah. So, meaning that he's acting in good faith.
Yeah.
And if he's acting in good faith, where we are all acting as brothers and sisters, and of course Museveni is giving him his due share of respect, that is a head of state.
That's right.
He's a head of state, whether elected yesterday or what, is a head of state.
Yeah.
And soon, in the spirit of rotational system, he'll be chairing East Africa when Museveni is there, because they have a rotational system.
Yes.
So he'll be chairing. So that's why I said, unless I know other defects of Ruto, which I'm not going to go into, is that it appears a simple question that Ruto's election means well for East Africa. It means well for the federation, and of course it means well for the economy and the well-being of the people. The spirit that the professor keeps referring to must eventually translate into the material well-being of the people. But remember that the spirit is what eventually is codified even into law. And that's why he says, when I talk of the law, what is the spirit behind the law? The actual legislation, the actual putting it into paper is just a mere codification. You are coding it, you're putting the sections and the chapters and the sub-clauses there too. But the spirit must get that. What is this meant to sanction? What is this meant to prohibit? What is it meant to promote? And that is the spirit behind it.
Okay.
What
And
he
maybe to add on, I saw him clearly saying that his agenda is largely economical and focusing on what is not being done well with the youth, with the underprivileged, etc. And if I may extrapolate that, is to mean that he wishes to trade more, because where will he get the money to? And Uganda has been a very big trading partner with Kenya, to an extent that they take more from us than we get from them. So going by what he said, then we expect more trade with Uganda. We expect more trade with other East African countries. We expect them to contribute to what we are trying to do in Congo, opening up roads so that we can all trade freely. Interconnect.
Yeah.
And so, because where will he get the money? From heaven? From Sri Lanka? Going by what he said, and which to me is largely interest based, regardless of what he may be wishing to be Kenyan, but he seems to be willing to undermine that spirit for sake of Kenya and East Africa. And to me that then means the presidency of Ruto is more pro East Africa and East African Federation than and then maybe to also finally say that it was very unfortunate for Raila Odinga really to, because I'm Ugandan. Much as I know I have a problem, but really don't admit. Uganda has sacrificed more for East Africa than any other country.
Exactly.
That's why here Uganda Railway, even when we were having trouble here, we were going there working for Kenya in Nairobi for many years. Our people here, they were teachers. All the minerals came from Uganda, all the food. And we know that. So when we have trouble, don't really, we already are, don't burn us twice like charcoal, really.
Don't throw the egg on our face. All right.
That was a reckless statement.
Honourable, let me come to you. It's clear to me by now that politicians play a big role in terms of any transition. For it to be smooth or to be, or for it to have hurdles, politicians will play a very big role. Because why do I say this? In 2017, when the IEBC declared, of course, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto as the elected government, Raila Odinga held a parallel swearing-in event. And this indeed culminated into, it made the Uhuru government ungovernable. With all these protests and all these walk-to-work things, the government, the Jubilee government became ungovernable. But this time round, he didn't concede completely, but at least he did not incite the people to maybe demonstrate and cause maybe violence and things like that. So it is clear that politicians have a very big role in how peaceful or in how hazardous any transition will happen. So the question that I would like to pose to you is that, do you think that politicians in Uganda, and we'll focus at the top level as Dr. likes us to, do you think that politicians at that presidential level have failed to guide their followers in terms of, if I have lost an election, I should be able to concede and tell my voters that, hey guys, we ran a good race, but we have lost, and let us go back home and prepare better. Here it is the contrary. There is more incitement. So let's examine the role of leaders in terms of guiding a transition process.
Yeah, thank you. Just as I said, I was in Nairobi all that time long. It's not that Raila did not want to do anything. The Kenyans were not willing.
Oh, really?
Churches everywhere, every leader was telling Kenyans, it is not worth it. You'll be the one dying and the leaders will be here. What is the use? There were prayers throughout. And Kenyans came out, they would go by the right elections. There were too many observers. Honestly, if something went wrong, it was not so big. It could not culminate to miscarriage of justice, not at all. So seeing all that, he tried. People ran for their lives and kept in houses and said, oh my God, I don't want to die. But nothing. There was nothing. People are not ready to fight for anything. Right from his home, they send him a strong worded message that this time you die yourself. Do not think we are going to go and die for you. This was from Kisumu. So with all that, he tried. Even he said, he has an alternative information. But he sees no one is willing to follow that. People want peace. People want to settle down. Two, Ruto basically went for the most rural, went for the vulnerable. The Mboga sellers said, I am going to change your life. I'm going to, the youths. He went for the right thing. And definitely will not expect him to lose any election at that rate. That said, Uganda, the hysteria must stop. You have lost an election, you start telling lies, I won this election, I did this. This madness is in the city centers. When it comes to Terego, polling stations, you sign the declaration of result forms. Results are read in every polling station. And people pick this. They are now phones. And they add up. They know so-and-so is winning. What is the hysteria about? So they say they are hooligans, robbers, broad day robbers. They want to cause confusion so as to mess up the whole system. It's unfortunate. For me, I think those who want to go into elections must know that there is win or lose. You should be ready for both. Yeah, you shouldn't think I must win and win. Then who is to lose? There are two sides of the coin.
Good argument.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr.
Can I think Honourable needs to reflect also a bit. She's a philosopher. They need to respect that an election is not an event.
It's a process.
And that's why I like the judges and the democratic movement of Raila Odinga. Because he has, by all standards, even when I may not agree with his ways, he has been the democratic director of Kenya. He has really pushed that system to form. And I liked what the judges said, that the only thing left now is to put trust in the institutions, in IBC, because they felt it's important. The other things have been done. And thanks to Raila, by the way, he has really pushed since I was passing through that country during Moi's time, and I would see when I was going to Tanzania to study, and I would see really tension and evolution, and he was at the forefront. And like Karl Marx, when his spirit will also be read in a different way. He may not have taken power, but the spirit, I'm being honest, his spirit should also be appraised. So, to that, and to ask Honourable to be very sincere, I think the process must also, as philosophers or shapers of country, we must push for a process to look like the final event. You get me? Said that they look alike, and that when finally result comes, even the people are saying, no, I think you are wrong here. But when the process does not look like the result, which as an NRM person, I think there are loopholes. I see them. I see the loopholes, and we must sincerely address these loopholes of the process and the trust in the independence of institution. Realistically, if we don't iron this out, we will be lying to ourselves to even now call people. It's like people are saying you are immoral and you are saying stop again. It will be a conflict. It will be a conflict. People will not believe you. And this is a very challenging situation that you are a priest in a church. You are married with two women and you are telling people, no, marry one. Marry one. It's not, the church doesn't allow it. So when the process does not look like the event, which is the final announcement, then it is intellectually honest. You see, for people to, but that does not call for violence as an event or so. It calls for hard work of players to make sure that they bring this process to almost similarity. I'm not saying perfect because it won't even be in the UK. But almost similarity with the event, the final. And this is where I want honesty to be, and that hard work. We pronounce ourselves on the hard work to be like, but the judges, so go ahead read the judgment. They are very clear. Say, yes, we see, but I think what is left is for Kenyans to trust. But I also don't want to undermine Kenyans. Raila Odinga and Ruto And they are recognizing it. They are about 220,000 votes is the other one can stop your country from operating if he chooses. And that's why I like the way Ruto is coming out. Please, let's come and work. Say anything. Let's work together, because the numerical strength is almost the same. And for a sincere leader, an honest leader, you see it immediately. And you abandon the spirit of power that you may be tempted to have, and you opt for nation, and you go to your and say, no, let's work, let's really work. And that's what the predecessor did also. The Bridges Initiative, the water, all that was to recognize that Ryland Group have power, though they may not have the numerical, but they have power and they can stop us from achieving our objective. So Kenya is moving towards a national objective. I even let's work. We differ, but I will give you this. So at the end of the day, once trust now it's their institution, they will seed. They have seeded the best to the judges table, bench. They have seeded. Now they are left with seeding their best to the electoral commission, which they have done. And I heard Chibukati is being praised for not seeding some falsehood that was going around. And so once they have trust, the process will be complete. And this takes time. I don't want it to also be something from heaven manna. It will take time. The next round they will come to. By the way, the spirit of Raila will also be remembered. Let me tell you, you can be aware, and the people of Kenya begin saying, now we know why Raila was important. And this is what I will end with. Leadership is a joint venture. This one man strong syndrome and people lose their minds and is unsustainable. It can't say it's a joint venture. The acts of parliament, the acts of me and him, my failure to do my work also finally undermines nation. And so we must empower ourselves and know that without anyone, we can survive and we can continue. So without Raila Odinga, the nation can continue. Without Ruto, the nation can continue. So the nation, the success is for Kenya.
Doctor, honestly, before God, I know you know about the alternative government, and you know in this country, we have the minority report for everything in that parliament, unless they choose to agree with us. And we at times sift through. We always, by the way, we always look through the minority report. We merge it. We discuss it. It is discussed together. This does not mean the fact that I said yes, Ruto genuinely won. Does not mean that I said Raila was not strong. They were both strong candidates, but the other one was stronger because he knew what to say. You know, the other one was in a little bit of a rivalry. After the ruling, the current president is with me. He had arrived. He has not been in my world of a rural girl in Terego. Whatever I went through, you don't know, doctor. You really don't know. You have never slept in a house where the topmost is open. When it rains, you put your siblings in front of you. You cover them off from, you seal them off from the rain. And you take the slippery leaves in cups. And then you divide water and you drink on them. I don't think you have this experience. But when Ruto came with that experience, he was speaking to the majority. You know that the majority of this country, I always tell my colleagues, whom are you talking about? These people who organize workshops for us in Serena, in what? Whom are you talking to? You think with 4 degrees, I don't know what you are telling me? When are you reaching that person in Terego? You get the point. So arrivalism is what kills these hooligans in Kampala. They think Uganda means Kampala. How can you be in Terego and in more than half of the stations you don't have even an agent? So who is the agent of Lupia? No one. You think you can win? And it was not only in Terego. It was in Komoko. It was in elsewhere. If you don't
but do you appreciate their argument also?
Yes, we do.
Their agents are often they don't have, they are not allowed to organize at village level. They have that argument. It may not be valid, but they have that argument. Have you internalized it as philosophers and see that maybe this arrangement should be allowed? that
It is allowed.
with the Public Management Order Management Act, that if you mobilize in a village right now to organize, they will stop you, say you are disturbing the peace of the.
By the
but
way-
then another person's meeting will be allowed through their structures. This is why I want philosophers to dig more, not to look at
Anybody
events,
who loses
but
in
the
this world,
process. No, I don't want to say
claim
losing.
there
I
is
want
a
us
foul
to
play.
integrate, to interrogate the process and its sincerity.
I want to
Because as an
give you
academic, I'm
a rare
interested.
example, a very rare example. In the whole country, the highest position held by these purple people, they are called what? Mugisa Muntu's party.
The and
Do you know that it is in Terego? Not because this man was anywhere, but because people looked at what this chairman had to offer.
So the chairman is Ant?
The highest position in this country
LC5.
by Ant is in Terego.
LC5?
Yes.
Interesting.
And his deputy, his vice chair is NRM. Secretary finance is NRM. He has appointed everyone NRM. Only 2 of the executive members are opposition. He sits with us and say, I believe in NRM, ABCD. He was fighting with the NRM caucus on immunization. The so-called NRMs were busy saying, no, how can Museveni wake up and say, let's immunize children? So this is how mad some things happen. Opposition, I work very well with this chairman. Yet we're in different parties. Our focus is the people of Terego. They both elected us. How do I fight with you? He got over 20,000. We too got the highest number of votes in Terego.
by the way, Honourable, that given in us who from the scientific world, it could be an isolated example, and we take.
Yeah, but it matters.
But it matters. But I want to go back to him and challenge ourselves. 33 years after of a system that has been creating a belief system. You are even talking of grass thatched house, so I don't understand. But of a system that has been creating or trying to push for a belief system or values that can promote statesmanship or stateswomanship if it's there. For us to accept that we are politically disoriented, not well formed. Now that's his duty, that they failed to cultivate this. But why I want you to, it's not just a matter of argument, why I'm calling for this. I want us to interrogate this complaint on its merits, onto whether, if, for example, an opposition leader from NUP or what, organized a meeting and sent out invitations in a village X, which I know, where they are not popular, whether this would not be questioned. Because I have also been in villages where, for example, they send out these invitations and they could be even denied a radio station, or they could be denied a space in a hotel to meet. And if they gathered outside, that would be against the public money. I want us to be sincere. This is as philosophers of country. This one should be interrogated on its own merit, without a political heart, wearing a spirit of statesmanship, to see whether we are giving chance to all these groups to convince. But someone will argue, and I can be with you if he argued that way. But who gives this chance on a silver plate? That's how now our political hiding. But when I'm wearing the hat of a philosopher, I want to integrate, to interrogate this and know whether this is pro my state development or my government development, or whether it's against.
But I think Professor has really emphasized and made this point very clear. And I don't think I deviate from what he's saying. You have repeatedly said that it's not the counting of the votes. It's the process to arrive on the day for the counting of the votes. We have known for a fact that RDCs have stopped candidates in going to radio stations, and also to some extent tampering with the gathering, like in the hotels. That one need to be discussed. But I think what brought more complication with us in the last campaign was the presence of Corona.
Yes.
Corona complicated it because guidelines came, in their attempt to protect lives, it complicated it. If we didn't have Corona, maybe this one who are doing things that really is not in the national spirit would have been led bare. I personally believe that there is an overzealousness among our cadres at the RDC level and all this. And also for us, maybe as a ruling party, as a government, tend to turn an eye away from the acts of the overzealous cadres. You find an RDC has done it without any directive. The president has not directed and he did it, but also, as you're saying, the mere turning away of the eye or the mere not putting him to order would mean complicity on our side. But I think I agree with you that attempts will be made that not only the end justifies the means, but the means should go up to the end and must be seen to be democratic. Now, about not ceding power, we really as a movement or NRM do not want to cede power just like that. But we have always said for us to maintain power, we must do what is in the interest of the people. We are not going to say we are not ceding power because we have the army, because we have the police, because we have to do what. No. The only answer of not losing this power is can we do what the people want? Yes. Because at the end, the people are the final decision makers. So we are very firm that we know power cannot be handed away like that. And that is why we have to devise through the manifesto to implement what is good and also go ahead to make sure that all the wrongs are not there. Do what is pro-people. But don't think that as a movement you're going to hold power. We're not going to give it away by mere having tanks and helicopters and no. It's by the will of the people. And even in the SEC meeting that we had around December, before I think it ended around the 17th last year, Museveni presented a paper on mobilization. He says the only way you're going to talk about mobilization is how you meet the needs of the people. It's not the blah, blah, blah. It's not siasa in quotes and quotes. It's not your ability to convince people that black is white or white is black. No. It's do you identify the needs of the people? Do you identify what the people of Terego, what people of Kamunyu? So it is only what will save us. But the mention that we don't give power like that should not be taken in abstract, that you stick to power by the gun, by the police, by the army. No. So I agree with you, Professor, that really means should be transparent, should be equal, should be available to everybody. And therefore, if there are overzealous cadres that are really tampering with the procedures, they should be given good guidance. And if they don't follow the guidance, should be put to order.
Okay, fair enough. I think that has been very amazing.
Yeah, maybe lastly, also, Professor, you know, if you have candidates at all levels, the president cannot, or the candidate cannot reach to the lowest. You know, I can round Terego 7-8 times. I can come to the same village 7 times, but the president will not reach that village. So in the absence of a candidate who will speak about your party, definitely you can see that the level of belief in your party goes down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with you, but for me on my side, of course, when it benefits me, I will keep quiet. But where intellectual honesty is needed, I also think that having a candidate willing to toil your way is related to what probably will happen to them when they don't win or when they lose. Because we have seen a situation, even in institutions of higher learning, or where if you don't toe a line of a certain manager, they will not approve your document somewhere else. And these were the issues that were being raised when I was young, that if you belong to DP, UPC will not allow you on their scholarship list. And these things have come. So people get threatened. Say, my place is predominantly NRM. If I stand, they will isolate me. And these are the issues when, if you want a democracy, a real democracy and building for it, that you must deal with. And that's what the vice president was saying in Kenya. Don't fear criticizing us. Criticize us. And to me, should be a deliberate area of power. And President Museveni himself knows this and how it affected us during the DPUPC time.
Okay.
And NRM should not now be the UPC of then.
Well.
And it should make sure that in order for us to grow democratically, all people must be assured of their tenure and life when they participate in an activity that is contrary or that believes in contrary or in terms of ideas to yours. Yes. Yeah.
Well, senior citizens, it has been an amazing hour and I think and a half. Thank you very much for sparing the time to be on the Citizen Chat Show. But I think it's only courteous that I give you 30 seconds to give us your last words on the show. And perhaps maybe, Major, as you give us your last words, I would love you to just make a comment regarding what people have said, that the Kenya transition is not just a political transition at the top, but there is a paradigm shift from the whole dynasty of you have to be from this family to become president or vice president, to now a new shift of, you know, the hustlers. Anyone can rise up to the top of either public service or of business. So just your comment on that. But from my two colleagues, I'll just take last words, 30 seconds. Then for Major, I'll give him an extra minute. So I'll begin with you, Doctor, Honourable, then I'll conclude with Major.
First of all, this democracy business is the business of the people. Whether it's a constitutional monarch or a presidency, it's a business of the people. And for any statesman or anyone who loves that to be the business of the people, they must deliberately, in form and in spirit, develop the competences of the people such that they can finally rule rightly in their direction. That if the people are not given the necessary competence to rule for nation, they may constantly and for perpetuity destroy even those who refuse to give them that chance competently to decide for nation. And so my call on leaders of all NRM in Uganda is that struggle to build the competences of the people that finally make decisions in democracy. So that when they decide, when you are at your weakest, when you no longer have power, they will decide in your favor also.
All right.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to have been part of this. To the people of Terego, there's a lot of rain. A lot of seedlings have been given by my agents. Kindly plant them religiously. Do not cross any river body alone. Check if it's raining somewhere. Always be careful. I do not want to lose any one of you. Take care of yourselves. Plant crops. We should never be seen dying of hunger. Plant enough for your family, and the balance we sell it. Till next time, I love you.
Thank you. Yes, Major.
Yeah, I start with the comment about the change from the big dominant families in Kenya, that is Raila and Kenyatta, to somebody who pursued the theme, I hope rightly so, because some people argue he's a wealthy man, but I think he's a wealthy man, but he's more emphasizing on his ability to come from nothing up. So that he has portrayed that is not a dominant families. That's good for them, and that's democracy. In the democracy, everybody should be given the right to thrive, to do your ability. And I think that's the same thing we have in Uganda. Basically, the constitution of Uganda and Kenya are the same. With Article 1 giving power to the people. And somebody asked me the other day here, that why is it that the people of Kenya can threaten to rise or can rise and the people of Uganda don't? I told them it's because they have nothing to rise about. Their interests are met. So why would they rise? Their interests are met. Now, the same thing is in Uganda. The Ugandan constitutional provision is that there's no heredity. Everybody is free. Everybody, whether you're a son of a president or not. So it's the same thing in Kenya. And the only thing that maybe the thing that is put is that it puts in trust among people who think I can also make it. If Ruth can, why not me? It's okay. The constitution guarantees that. So everybody in Uganda, the constitution guarantees that you're eligible to stand for an elective post. You can grow up from LC1, LC5, go to the parliament and do whatever you want, as long as you are competent enough, as long as people like you. So the route to overthrow, in quotes unquote, of the two dominant families has simply demonstrated to everybody else that if the constitutional drafting guarantees you, take advantage. I think I've answered that. But I just permit me also to say that today is a day of democracy. All that we have been discussing is in the theme, is in the thematic concern of democracy. It's all embedded there. A day dedicated for a theme or a day dedicated for an idea is just to give wider memory, wider thought about it. The presumption is that the whole world today is thinking about democracy. I think for us, we have even been lucky that we have had the day grounding it up with a discussion on democratic matters. So I like to tell my views that today is a day of democracy. Please think about it. It's not too late. But democracy simply means power to the people. So it is what we should. So finally, on the Kenyan and the UK is that people have the power to elect leaders. And as Doctor says, they are state bodies that should always be able to respect the will of the people when such a leader comes up. And I think in Uganda we are building up to that. We are building the army, we are building all these institutions, the courts. And remember that Kenya, partly, silently, to Kenyans, there hangs the hammer of ICC. We were lucky as Ugandans, we went without. So even whether Raila wanted to riot or not, remember Raila is aware there's ICC. ICC is somewhere. But we were lucky as Ugandans, we grew up our own, we domesticated our own, and we have gone through it our own without an arm over us as ICC. So much as Kenya has its good and examples to pick, I think we also have ours to be picked. That we can go through these storms without necessarily a fear of ICC on your head. Because we can, that means we can manage our own affairs. So we thank Kenya, we thank UK with their transition, but also remember UK is really ceremonial. We need to examine, as I was saying, to what extent does really a king do. The legislators really make, I don't know whether the king is the one who ascends to the law or not. Maybe next time we shall do, if we're compare the monarchy in Switzerland. Maybe Switzerland brings it more near, but the English one, mainly the king is ceremonial. Actually, it is put in ink. It's ceremonial head. And what does ceremonial mean? Really there.
I'm even told that when she's appointing the prime minister, when the king is appointed, or now the king, they don't give them a letter. It's just shaking hands. So meaning respecting the decisions of the parties and the House of Commons. Meaning the decisions actually are made by the people, but they chose within their customs to respect their kingdom and their king. But there are also debates, by the way, and they're allowing them on whether they can't also become a republic.
Okay. Thank you very much, senior citizens, retired Major Awich Pollar, Honourable from Terego, and Doctor. Many thanks for joining us on the Citizen Chat Show. Well, that brings us to the end of this conversation. We hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that you've learned something. We wish you a lovely weekend. Until next week, same time. Bye-bye.